This is a Polaroid SX-70, which is, in my opinion, one of the coolest looking cameras ever made. You start with this slab of metal covered in leather, and you just pop it open. Now you have an instant camera. It's really cool that you could get near instantaneous physical prints like this, although it's not without its faults. Let me rewind back a little bit. This film was made by Polaroid, but not the same Polaroid that made this camera. This current iteration of Polaroid, aka Polaroid BV, formerly known as Polaroid Originals, which was rebranded from the Impossible Project, bought the machines required to make the film and eventually the Polaroid brand from whatever holding company owned the rights to the now defunct Polaroid Corporation, which was the original Polaroid responsible for manufacturing this camera, and by original Polaroid I mean the first iteration, not to be confused with Polaroid Originals. Could I have explained that more clearly? Yeah. Anyway, one of the major hurdles that the new Polaroid had to contend with is while they had the machines, they didn't have the formulas for the emulsions and had to start from scratch. At best, their early stuff was inconsistent, but over the years they've gotten better and landed on something I consider pretty good. While most of my issues actually came from the camera itself and not the film, and we will eventually get to that. I'm just not the biggest fan of the soft, washed out colors, but I wonder, could I get more using the new film with this old camera? So they make black and white SX-70 film, and that got me thinking, could you get better colors if you trichrome it? I made a whole video about trichrome, but the general idea is take some black and white film, shoot it through a red, green, and blue filter, sprinkle in some Photoshop magic, and you get a color photo. Then add some color correction because you accidentally underexposed the green channel. Then you end up with a color photo that doesn't quite look right, and you start to wonder, was this all worth it? Especially since the perfect color film already exists. But then you realize you spend a bunch of money on trichrome filters and sunk cost fallacy sets in, and here we are. Anyway, here's my first attempt. This one was good, or at least as good as I hoped. This one, not so good. There appears to be a light leak on top, but otherwise usable. Yeah, this last one's pretty bad. And when you trichrome it, it's something. First off, if you just ignore everything that went wrong, it kinda sorta worked. I was able to trichrome it, but there's some pretty big issues that need to be addressed. This camera is like 50 years old and probably never had a CLA. I can't say for certain, but I think this is a roller issue. After the film is exposed, the camera will eject the film through a pair of rollers. These rollers squeeze the chemical pods at the base of the film, and in a perfect world, the roller would evenly spread the chemistry across the frame. Here's an example of what happens when the film gets stuck and the chemistry doesn't spread across the frame. You can see where it's clumped up at the bottom and consequently nothing in the frame was developed. If the rollers are dirty or damaged, it could lead to results like this or that. Even though this didn't turn out how I wanted, it proved that it can work. So I cleaned the rollers and I decided to go ahead and try again. But this time I made another mistake. The SX-70 has a built-in meter, and with this dial you can make the final image brighter or darker. I wasn't paying attention and I accidentally bumped the dial, and so I overexposed all of these images. Here's the red channel. Here's the green channel, which I somehow managed to underexpose. And here's the blue channel. If you just ignore the mistakes, this one turned out okay. At least it didn't have any weird roller issues. So now if I'm able to just put everything together, I should get a good trichrome. This time the red channel turned out underexposed. The green channel turned out alright. And the blue channel was overexposed. This one also didn't turn out. For whatever reason, I just can't land the right mix. And while the trichrome didn't really turn out on this one as well, whatever's going on here looks pretty cool. I mean, it's not what I wanted, but it looks neat nonetheless. After messing around at this point, I think I finally got it figured out. So I went out and I tried it again. This is the red channel. I think it turned out looking pretty good. And that's it. I don't have a green or a blue channel because I ran out of film. Originally, SX-70 film packs came with 10 shots per pack, and when you insert a pack into the camera, the film counter resets to 10 and counts down. This is an issue because the new Polaroid film packs only come with 8 shots per pack, meaning even though the camera says 10 shots remaining, there's only 8 shots left. So when it says 3 shots remaining, it actually only has 1 shot left. I wasn't paying attention and just assumed I had 3 shots left because that's what the camera said, when in reality I only had 1. And I didn't have any extra film on me, so that's why we only have 1/3 of a trichrome here. This next one, I don't actually have the physical prints anymore, and that's for a good reason, and I'll get to that in a little bit. The red and green channels turned out alright, but the blue, not so much. What happened here was the film jammed, and this happens because the pick arm inside the camera gets bent out of shape. So while the film pack was still inside the camera, I slid the dark slide back in, took the pack out, tried to bend the pick arm, put the pack back in, and I took a shot while covering the lens so the film could properly go through the rollers, and it seemed to have worked because the film developed, but it also looked like the film got fogged in the process. And unsurprisingly, the trichrome really didn't turn out. Now, since this was just another disappointment, I'd figured it'd be fine to do something with the actual prints. So I decided to do an emulsion lift. Couple things, I've never done an emulsion lift before, and all I know about the process is from a video I watched like 5 years ago. What could go wrong? Apparently a lot. I didn't know how pliable the emulsion was, I didn't know how much force it would take before it would rip, I didn't know the best way to unroll the edges. This absolute cluster of an emulsion lift was a good lesson. I learned a lot, but maybe I should have tried it with a test shot first. Or at least with like the fogged shot first. It might be hard to see, but this one turned out a lot better. It's still in one piece. There's a lot of wrinkles and some small tears, but way better than the first one. The third one turned out pretty good. The edges are still a little rough and ended with a couple of creases in the middle. Also, it's slightly canted, but definitely the best out of the bunch. Now the trichrome is a mess, but that's honestly expected. Given all the variables involved with an emulsion lift, I didn't think this would work out anyway. The emulsion lift was fun, but wasn't really the reason why I disassembled these prints. The main reason is because I wanted to get to the negatives. The negative is stuck on the emulsion with this white layer that washes off. One thing you might notice is that all three have similar exposures. For some reason, the blue channel print, which was fogged, came out fine as a negative. I don't know why, but I'm not complaining. If it takes disassembling a print in order to get to a trichrome, so be it. At this point I wanted to shoot more, but the camera just kept having issues. No matter how much I attempted to bend that pick arm, it would just keep on jamming. Also, I ran out of black and white film, so I tried to trichrome with color film. And it was off to a good start before I got 2/3 away there and disaster. So this film got jammed in the camera, and when I tried to eject it, it kind of exploded. Which explains why these rollers are currently covered in gunk. At this point I can't really shoot with this camera, it's just not reliable. I do plan on sending it in to get it repaired, but not anytime soon because I don't care anymore.